I fucking hate this computer, you guys. Oh boy. We're 10 minutes late because this computer is an absolute piece of shit and doesn't like to work right anymore. So I'm going to stop talking for a second because I need a drink. But before I do that, I want to introduce today's guest, Mr. Jonathan Kleinbart with Hotaling and Co. He's the regional manager for Los Angeles. And Hotaling and Co. is the importer of what is probably the only Taiwanese whiskey distillery, or at least the only popular one. Kavalan whiskey made at the King Car Distillery. So, without further ado, I'm going to fix my audio, pour a drink, and I'm going to let John talk and introduce himself.
Thank you, Sam. Somebody get that man a drink pronto. So I'm Jonathan Kleinbart. I am the regional sales manager for Hotaling and Co, covering Southern California. My specific territory is primarily Los Angeles. So I do spend the bulk of my time here. And we are fortunate to be the sole U.S. importer for Kavalan, Taiwanese single malt. And this is a brand, I've been with the company about 5 years. This is a brand I've watched grow just incrementally every year. It started out as a brand that really kind of flew under the radar a little bit. And after winning numerous awards over the years, they've really put their name on the map. And so
here's the thing, though, with Kavalan, I still feel like it flies under the radar.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, you cut out there. Was there more to that? Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, especially with Asian whiskeys, everybody focuses on Japanese whiskey these days, and that's with good reason. There's some really quality stuff coming out of Japan, certainly. But we're beginning to see whiskey coming from really all over the world, but Asia in particular, out of Taiwan and India as well lately. That's really kind of holding its own in the whiskey world, particularly as compared to Scotch whiskey, which is generally what they try to emulate.
Gotcha. So, for King Car whiskey, can you explain actually a little bit before we really dive into the Kavalan? King Car and Kavalan. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So King Car is going to be the parent company for Kavalan, and King Car Group is a large kind of conglomerate, if you will. The closest comparison I can think of here in the States would be something like God, what's the name of it? Johnson & Johnson, really, or something like that. Unilever, that's the one I was trying to think of. So, Unilever has drinks businesses, they have coffee business, they have packaged food, all kinds of good stuff. Same goes for King Car Group. So King Car Group does, bottled water, they do prepackaged coffee drinks. They actually do household cleaners as well, kind of surprisingly. But they,
Really?
One particularly interesting subsidiary, I guess you could say, would be the Kavalan Distillery. And that stretches back to about 2006 is when the distillery was completed. And the reasoning is the owner of the King Car Group, a man who goes by Mr. Lee, was a big Scotch whiskey drinker. And prior to the Kavalan distillery being built, there were really no distilleries making whiskey in Taiwan. And that goes back to basically government laws saying you couldn't do that. And the only reason that changed is Kavalan Taiwan joined the World Trade Organization back in 2005. And when they joined the WTO, they had to abide by the rules, which state that, private enterprise can own a distillery as long as they have the proper licensing. And so King Car Group was uniquely positioned to really hit the ground running because they had a lot of capital from their other businesses, really. And, they also had the drive and the desire to really build this distillery and get it off the ground quickly. And so that's the connection.
Quick shout out to our friends in the comments, by the way, John. Emily says she's excited for this. She recently had Kavalan recommended to her. Emily, go buy it. You won't be disappointed. I just had some of this bad boy here, which I think is the classic, right? Yeah, this is the Kavalan Classic.
Looks like
and
classic,
even this baby at 43% is packed full of flavor. Our friend Anand said, not Kavalan. but he's definitely had whiskeys that could double for a household cleaner. Anand, where are you getting that hazmat, and why do I not have any? For those of you who don't know, hazmat is a nickname for super high proof whiskey. We're talking like 165, 170 plus proof.
Woof. Barely call it whiskey at that point.
I want some of that. I think you can still, though.
Up to 190 proof, I think.
As far as I know, there's no maximum bottling strength, is there?
I think the generally accepted ABV that you can't really go above is 190, because then you're squarely in vodka range. Now, that's not the law, I don't think, everywhere, but I know in Scotland you can't go above a certain proof. Taiwan, I'm really not sure, but they don't bottle that high anyway. Really, at that point, you're stripping a lot of the flavor out of the grain itself.
Fair enough. So obviously, like I said when we started, my computer was acting up, so I needed a drink. So I just had a little bit of the classic. But where do you actually want to start? Because we have 6 delicious whiskeys in front of us, and 2 of them aren't available anymore, right?
Well, one of them for sure is not available. The other one you might still be able to find, but it would probably be somewhere that like has a bottle from last year, maybe 2 years ago even. So all the way on, I guess your left, my right here, with the white label, that's a sherry cask that was a single barrel that we actually sold to Southern Wine and Spirits here in Southern California. Their artisanal group in particular, which is their craft spirits division. So they basically purchased the barrel of that after tasting a few different ones, and were able to sell that to all their best customers over the course of probably 4 to 6 months or so. So that was probably 2 years ago at this point, which is why I'm pretty sure all those bottles are probably sold and sitting in somebody's whiskey basement somewhere. Hopefully, now, getting
the bottling. The code on this says 2014.
So yeah, I mean that's possible that it was bottled in 2014 and really like took that long to get over to the States and actually get out into the market.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, it's funny. The lag time with the single barrels is definitely a thing. And it has to go a long way, obviously. Then it has to be bottled, and it has to be labeled for each particular person that's buying it. It's a whole process, definitely.
Fair enough. So, John, where are we starting?
Well, I would start, and I just have these little guys for you, but I would start with the DS here, means Distillery Select. And so that would be the there you go, the kind of grayish bottle there, shaded. I don't know what you call that.
Greenish brown.
There you go.
Looks kind of like green to me with like some brownish on the inside from the liquid.
Yeah, I can see that.
Well, so Distillery Select. Talk to us about this one, man.
So this is a fairly new release from Kavalan. So up until I'd say about 2 years ago, their entry level was the classical to some people, which is the clear bottle that you were just sipping on, I believe. And that was kind of that's the classic Kavalan malt, basically, is that bottling right there. Unfortunately, we couldn't get the price low enough to really bring in interested buyers that maybe weren't ready to spend $70 or $80 on a bottle. And so we actually went to Kavalan and we said, hey, look, can you give us something that's maybe a little lower priced? Maybe it doesn't have to be quite as complex. Maybe it can be a little better for a highball or for cocktail use, that kind of stuff. But we still want to be a good sipper. And they came back to us with the Distillery Select, which is still 86 proof, 43% ABV. But instead of using first fill barrels, they use second and third fill barrels for this one. And the barrels come from bourbon producers, sherry producers, and wine producers. But basically, they're just saving a little money by reusing the barrels, a couple more times. The distillate itself starts out exactly the same as every other Kavalan release, which is 100% malted barley. But yeah, in the end, you get a nice kind of softer whiskey that's a little more approachable, and really drinks pretty well, even without ice or cocktail treatment or anything.
So while I, kind of, for lack of a better term, appraise this whiskey, I want you to touch on something that you kind of mentioned is price. Why is Kavalan, such a, I hate to say it like this, but it's a higher priced item. It's not something that you would, not blink twice about. It's something that you have to think about and really take your time to, well, what am I going to sell this for? Can I sell this? Is there going to be interest in this product? Kavalan is definitely more in, kind of the luxury range of whiskeys, but it's also a higher priced item. So can you touch on that? Because it's so young, but it's so expensive.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good question. One I certainly get pretty frequently. So, the primary reason for the price point that Kavalan is at is, as I mentioned, the distillates all start the same. So the distillate all starts with 100% malted barley. The barley is sourced from Scotland. So, that's pretty much the same as a lot of other producers, right? Where it takes a turn is their barrel program, and their kind of barrel acquisition, I should say. So they source barrels from really anybody that'll sell them, but a very large portion of those barrels are sherry barrels. And they've become pretty well known for having some very sherry forward whiskeys. Now, you and I both know sherry barrels are not inexpensive.
No, and actually, real quick, jumping in if you don't mind, I'm sorry. Yeah. Are they using authentic real sherry barrels, or are they using sherry seasoning barrels?
As far as I know, they're using authentic sherry barrels. Now, being that I don't live in Taiwan and I don't actually oversee the barrel program, I couldn't 100% tell you, for sure that some of those aren't seasoned barrels. Really the
sure.
The times I've inquired with the powers that be about questions like that, they generally don't really give out any information about where they source barrels. What I can tell you is they do have a program where they kind of reinvigorate barrels using the shave, toast, and rechar method, or STR. And so when they, when we're talking about, like, for the Distillery Select here, you're talking about a second and third fill barrel. What they're doing with those barrels is they're shaving the inside, retoasting it, and then recharring it as well. And so you're basically, maybe not getting a brand new barrel after that, but you're getting...
No, but you're rejuvenating the barrel and you're going past, like you said, they're shaving it. They're shaving off that top layer of char, and that char, not charcoal, but the char and the burn and the cracked wood, going down to not fresh wood, but new to them wood, I guess, is the easiest descriptor. Like a new to you car. It's not new, but it's new to you.
Exactly. It's like a pre-owned, pre-owned barrel, certified pre-owned, I think, in this case. Because the factory is actually doing it.
Joe said STR casks are more expensive. Yeah, that makes 100%. That's absolutely true, Joe. That makes sense. Because the amount of effort that goes into creating that STR cask, it only makes sense that it is going to be more expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that combined with the second point I wanted to make about the price, that combined with the very large angel share that occurs in Taiwan, because the climate is very hot and very humid. So, they end up losing, whereas, in Scotland, you have an angel share of around, 3%, maybe 5% in some cases per year. In Scotland, in Taiwan, it's nearing 15%.
Wow.
Yeah.
So what do they go into barrel at generally? Because I know sometimes, distillers be like, well, our main line is barreled at this, but like we have some fun stuff barreled at that, some other fun stuff barreled at bleh. And I knocked over my book. Today is just not a good day for stream.
I don't have the exact information on that, unfortunately. But I can tell you, so over time, the barrel proof goes down. And so I believe it probably starts around 160, 165. I don't think they go really much higher than that. And then, after say 4 years in a bourbon barrel, you're left with something that's closer to, 120, 125. And that's a factor of, again, the humidity, pulling alcohol out of the barrel instead of pulling water out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for those of us on here, myself included, who are not, particularly sciencey, would you, if you can, briefly explain, how that works with the alcohol evaporating instead of the water evaporating?
Sure. I mean, I'm no scientist, but to the best of my understanding, you basically have an equilibrium that's hit between in any given air, I guess you could say. You have an equilibrium that's hit with water where it can't actually take in any more water and turn it into a gas. And that equilibrium, I think, is about 50-50. I mean, if you go look at a humidity index, right? When it's 100% humidity, it doesn't mean the air is filled with 100% water. It means the air is filled with about 50% water, but that's the most that it can absorb.
Gotcha.
So now, when you have a very humid climate like in Taiwan, especially where Kavalan is, which is kind of in a tropical rainforest, if you will, the air is already pretty much maxed out for the amount of water they can hold, which means it's got to evaporate something out of the barrel, and so that something's going to be the alcohol instead of the water.
So what I'm hearing is that if you want to get a really good buzz, go stand in the Kavalan rick houses on the top floor.
I mean, maybe. I know it gets up to around, I think, 110 degrees up there, so I don't know if I'd stand up there too long, but...
Hey, you know what? Heat stroke plus alcohol vapor, magic combination.
Yeah, definitely.
For the record, do not try that at home. Please do not actually do that. I know I don't have to say that because I'm grateful that the people who watch this channel are not the kind of people who are crazy enough to do that. They leave that to me. Because I'm the kind of guy who will go to Kentucky and will go stand in the very top of the metal tin rick houses. So this Distillery Select, what are we looking at roughly for age?
Well, so nothing has an official age statement from Kavalan. As far as I know, you'll never see that. And that's by design. Obviously, you have a whiskey that's probably 4 to 6 years old that if you put it on a shelf and it says 4 to 6 years old and it's next to the Macallan 12 or 18, we all know which one people are probably going to reach for, right?
Yeah.
So that said, the info that I do have that I can pass along would be, so the bourbon barrels being smaller than sherry butts age for less time. The sherry butts that they use generally age the longest, and those are usually on the top floor of the rick house as well. Because there's more volume, they can handle a little bit more heat without being affected too much. And then, the bourbon barrels are usually on the first bottom floors. And those, again, age a little bit less time than the sherry barrels. So, if I had to guess an average, I'd probably say the Distillery Select is 4 to 6 years.
I can definitely see that. I would say probably maybe a 5-year. With this color and knowing what I know about the Kavalan or the Taiwanese climate. But the interesting thing about Distillery Select is that it reminds me of Sunday morning pancakes. Maple syrup, that artificial, overly sweet maple syrup, and butter.
Butter. I like that. Tasting note. I don't think I've ever gotten butter before, but now I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
It's not even on the palate. It's on the aromatics of it. It's on the nose taste, as I started to call it. So I was recording a video the other day, and I kept saying on the taste of it, we're talking about the aromatics. So I started calling it the nose taste, the nose flavor.
Yeah.
As stupid as it is, I thought it was hilarious.
The nasal palate, I guess, right?
The nasal palate. I like that. That's a fancy way of saying it.
They're all interconnected anyway. It's
exactly. It's all olfactory. Your whole, your nose, your mouth, everything's connected olfactory. But no, specifically on that, aromatics, is you get that super syrupy, super sweet maple syrup mixed with, butter on a hot pancake, hot griddle cake. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, sure. Sounds delicious.
That's what I get on the Distillery Select.
I think on that note, I might take a tiny bit more, actually.
And guys, just so you know, Jon was very kind and gracious. These are his bottles, and he's loaning them to me so that I can have them on camera and he held back vials for himself. So thank you, John. We appreciate it for
my pleasure.
Letting us have the bottles.
They look better on your desk than they do over here. That's for sure.
I mean, the Hotaling and Co banner is kind of nice. I'll tell you that much. So they probably would look nice, for a photo or something.
If you really want one, I'm just glad. Can you see it? Is it reading the right direction?
For me, it is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, for me too. Like the last time I did one of these, it was backwards, and we couldn't figure out how the hell to flip it. And so the whole time it was like, whatever it says backwards. I guess I don't know. Nilito or something.
Nilito. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nilito and Och.
Exactly. Well,
no, that's why I had the bottles ordered like I do, because normally I would go 1, 2, 3, but for camera I have to go 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Gotcha.
Because for everybody else, this is on my left side, but this is my right side. Mirrors confuse me, okay?
Navigating this new world of video chat is really, really difficult.
Our friends, the Whiskey Crusaders, Matt from Whiskey Crusaders, is in the chat. He said, "Hey, Sam, Joe, and Emily." You didn't say hey to John, Matt. That's rude. You have to say hello to my guest.
That's okay.
I'll
let it slide.
So I'm really glad that Taiwan reached out to me, Jonathan, because I had named the episode something very stupid that I didn't realize about a bad acronym. And they're like, hey, we want to give you creative freedom, but can you change this, please? And I'm like, oh, yes, not a problem.
Too funny.
Oh, sorry?
I'm glad they caught that, definitely.
Yeah, so am I. I would have been really embarrassed if I'd went live with that name. So welcome to Conversing on Kavalan.
There we go. That's a little better, I think.
So on the actual mouth palate.
Yep. The mouth palate, not the nose palate, but the mouth palate.
The mouth palate now, yeah.
I also see, I believe Joseph asked about the Angel share, if it's the same as Kentucky at 7%. And I will reiterate.
We did answer that it was not. It was 15, I think, right?
Yeah, it's closer to 15%, which is crazy. When I found that out, I was like, that is ridiculously high. But yeah, it's closer to.
Our friend T Squared said, Kavalan!
No, I was gonna say it's closer to Angel shares in the Caribbean, actually.
Wow.
If you're talking rum, because those are
like you said, it is a more tropical climate, so that does make some sense.
Yeah.
On the just regular palate, on the taste for this, it's very jammy, kind of figgy, a fig Newton fig jam, but sweetened a little bit. I do get some of that sherry cask, but it's sulfuric sherry. So that's where I get some of that, figginess from it. Be the sweetness, but then, hit with a hint of sour.
Yeah. I can see the sour for sure. I think that's probably having to do with the sherry influence more than anything else.
I think it's the sherry influence and the climate. Was that a slack I just heard?
Was that?
I thought I just heard the little slack. The da-da-da.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, not on my end. I don't think. Unless I did mention them on my girlfriend's computer, so there's a chance that she got a message.
Our friend Tom again said he was so on Kavalan until he got his total or TWW exclusive sherry single cask, which is fucking amazing.
Yeah, that was one we did, I think, last year, maybe the year before. But yeah, total picked up a barrel themselves, and I'm not sure which stores got it, but a number of them did, obviously. But yeah, I didn't get to try that one, but it would be similar to the one that we're tasting here today. Yeah, it would be Oloroso as well, for sure. What's your
Gotta stay
water?
hydrated.
What's your water choice, Sam? Sparkling? Good
Not
old
just sparkling.
Topo
The
Chico.
king of
Yeah.
sparkling.
That's the favorite.
It's a favorite of bartenders everywhere. But
Seriously?
unfortunately, the recipe's been changed.
Oh,
So it's
really?
no longer as heavily carbonated.
Oh, that's a shame. Because I mean, with the Distillery Select, it made a really good highball. Actually, that was kind of the go-to for highballs.
There was like PSF5 or whatever, some chemical compound that scientists said was over the recommended limit in many sparkling water brands, including Topo Chico, and Coca-Cola cut that down by a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that's what influenced and what changed it from that chemical being gone. I mean, it wasn't necessarily like a harmful chemical as far as I can tell, but anyway. So if you can find the old opaque bottles of Topo Chico, stock up. The new clear one isn't as good.
Oh wait, is it not like a bluish tint on the glass anymore?
No, this is completely clear.
Oh, that's super lame. Yeah, the old bottles were great. It was, I don't know, there was something to it that was just kind of cool, right?
I probably still have 3 or 4 of those rolling around in my car because I'm lazy. I get a bottle, I kill it in the car, and I toss it on the floor. There was a time before COVID, or even during COVID, when I was coming and going from my studio a lot. I would take a Topo Chico, crack it open, go to the car, drive home, finish it, and toss it on the floor. Next day, drive home, finish it, toss it on the floor. So there were like 4 or 5 bottles of Topo Chico rolling around in my passenger footwell, making a lot of clacking noise. And it was like, I really hate this. I need to stop doing this, but I haven't learned my lesson. So from the Distillery Select, where do you want to go to?
So the next logical progression would be the classical.
The classic. This baby, right?
Same bottle, different color. And I will speak to the bottle real quick. So the Distillery Select and the classical, there's a third called Concert Master, which we're not tasting today, but that's a port finish. It basically spends the first amount of time in ex-bourbon casks and is finished in port cask. And that's a green version of the same bottle, like bright green. But those bottles are meant to evoke the Taipei 101 Tower, which for, I don't know, a year or so was the tallest building in the world and is in Taiwan.
Isn't that Spire 73 now down here in LA, or is that the tallest building in the country, or at least on the West Coast? I know that.
On the West Coast. Yeah, West Coast, I believe. Yeah. But yeah, so the rest of the bottles in the lineup are like the classic kind of whiskey shape, right? But I mean, they are Kavalan specific.
Also, T Squared said it's not the whiskey. It's not Total Wine. It's the Whiskey World.
Oh, the whiskey. Oh, it's not Total. Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Well, so that was.
I was like, wait, TWW. They can't be Total Wine unless they added an extra W. There's the Whiskey World.
Well, so that was an extra single barrel then that the Whiskey World must have picked up. I'm not sure where that is in the country, but
Matt said he is cheap and he buys Members Mark by the case. I'm assuming he means water, which is a Texas thing. But yeah, so he says he's cheap and buys Members Mark by the case. I buy Topo Chico by the 12-pack and go through it if I'm taking my time in 3 days.
Now, is Members Mark is that a new release from Maker's Mark that I'm not aware of?
No, I think it's water at Sam's is what he said. Sam's Club. All right, so on to the classic. When we first started the stream today, guys, I'm sure some of you noticed we started like 10 minutes late. I was having a hell of a time with my computer. So I told John, I'm like, you talk, I need a fucking drink. And I poured some classic, and it was just fantastic. It's actually, the color is really different than the other ones so far, that I'm looking at here. And then it's very different than the Distillery Select. If you guys want to take a look, the Distillery, actually not that different. I feel like the Distillery Select, though, is a little darker than the Classic. I feel like the Classic's more of a golden honey. This is more like a dark brown amber honey.
So I can't speak to the color too much. They're on my end, they're about the same, but my lighting's not great though. But what I can tell you is, the Distillery Select I mentioned was second and third fill barrels. The Classic is all first fill. You're still working with bourbon barrels, sherry barrels, particularly Oloroso, and wine casks. for the mix. But it is, again, first fill, so you have a lot more kind of wet barrels coming in. And this was the first release for Kavalan, was the classic, way back in 2008. So they they finished their distillery after getting the authorization to build it in like 2005. It took them 9 months, so they really cranked it out. They enlisted the help of Dr. Jim Swan, famous Scottish distilling mind, who unfortunately passed away a couple years ago, or maybe 4 years ago now.
Speaking of famous whiskey minds passing away, if we could all raise a glass to Harvey Fry from Jack Rose, who is unfortunately no longer with us.
Oh, wow.
Cheers, Harvey. I never had the pleasure. Wish I had, though. As you were, please, John.
Yeah. Well, so Dr. Jim Swan was enlisted to work with a gentleman named Ian Chang. Ian Chang retired or moved on a couple years ago. But
he's working with Kurizawa Distillers in Japan now.
Is that what it is? I haven't kept up on it.
Is it Kurizawa? He's working on resurrecting a Japanese whiskey brand and, making it kind of the old heritage way. But yeah, he's in Japan now.
Okay. I mean, Kurizawa, the classic bottles are delicious and hard to find and very expensive from my experience. So obviously he's working with a good brand. I'm glad to hear they're bringing that back. That's pretty cool. But yeah, so Ian Chang and Jim Swan got started, and it took around 9 months.
Kurizawa to launch the Komodo distillery.
Which one?
He's launching the Komodo distillery to rebring Kurizawa.
Nice. Undertaking.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic. It'll be a couple of years. The distillery's not even built yet.
Yeah.
But he is now their president and chief blender.
I mean, that really is the biggest compliment that Kavalan could get, is, hey, there's a very storied Japanese distillery that wants to hire the master blender at Kavalan to come and build it out and kind of restart it. That's awesome. Congrats to him. But yeah, so they finished the Kavalan distillery in about 9 months, in record time. And the first whiskey was released in 2008, just a few years later. And that was this one right here in the glass. Now, the one that we're drinking probably has a little bit more age on it, because, they were eager to get the first batches out, obviously. So I feel like they probably didn't leave them in for as long as they, were able to or wanted to, There's always a rush to get product to market, certainly. But the overall flavor profile is going to be about the same as it was, 13 years ago.
It's rich, it's fruity, it's got a little bit of spice to it. It's approachable.
Mm-hmm. All the above. 43%. So, it's not, you don't really have to add any water to it, to be honest.
I feel like it drinks higher than that. I feel like it drinks closer to 50.
Yeah.
Mouth-filling, too, very much so.
It's chewy. Which is nice.
Oh, definitely.
That's usually something you don't get with, anything below 90 proof. But yeah, in this
very
case,
chewy.
Good stuff.
And there is a little hint of kind of like a rubberiness.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not like that burnt rubber like you expect with an Isla Scotch.
Right.
This is much more just kind of, it adds to that chewy descriptor that you said, which I think is really accurate.
Mm-hmm. Gotta love esters, right? It's usually where the kind of rubber comes from.
To think that this is really science. We're drinking science if you think about it. Is kind of interesting. Playing with yeast and fermentation, distillation proof, how long you let it run, the heads, hearts, tails, cuts, barrel entry. It's all a matter of, tweaking things, and it's sort of science. Where to next, John?
Well, so the next that I would recommend would be the King Car Conductor.
This is this guy or the box?
No, the black label with the Chinese characters.
Got it.
There we go.
Taiwanese characters, not Chinese, I assume.
I don't. Is there? I don't know if the characters are that different, but I honestly don't speak either language. So.
Sure. That's like the extent of my Chinese is sure.
That's to start.
At least I can say thank you, right?
That's a good one. It's funny. Like I was fortunate enough to travel to Japan a few years back, and really all I learned or all I like managed to learn before I went was like all your basics. Please, thank you, excuse me, can I have the check, all that good stuff. And really, what I figured out was really all you need to know is please and thank you, and excuse me is a good one too, actually. But yes, I would expect really anywhere you go, that's kind of the most important words you need to know.
What is please in Japanese?
Oh God! Well, now you're putting me on the spot, and I can't remember.
Thank you is arigato, or thank you is arigato gozaimasu.
There you go. Yep. Sumimasen would be like, pardon me, excuse me. So like that's the one I probably said the most, was like getting onto trains that are crowded is like sumimasen, like, oh, sorry. God, yeah, please. I'm drawing a blank. Somebody here's got to know that, I'm sure.
All right, guys, hit it in the chat if you know how to say please in Japanese. Let's see if we can beat John in his own game. He's bragging about going to Japan and learning Japanese a little bit, and he can't even remember how to say please.
It's terrible. I need to go back, really.
All jokes aside, I do want to have you back, actually, to talk about Nika in a few months. That'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, certainly.
Just really quick, for Japanese whiskey, obviously, there's the new trade. There's not the new. It's not new, but there's that trade association, the Japanese Spirits and Liqueurs Marketing Association, whatever they're called. Is there such a thing like that for Taiwan? Because there's not just whiskey. There's gin and rum and vodka, I assume, as well, right?
You saying for the Japanese association?
No. I'm saying there is that thing for Japan, for Kentucky. There's the KDA.
Yeah.
The Kentucky Distillers.
Onegashimasu. Yeah, that's vaguely familiar to me, definitely.
Thank you, Tom. So I'm saying, is there like some kind of regulating body for Taiwanese spirits?
Not to my knowledge, no. I think the only regulating body is probably Kavalan itself, just because they don't want to put anything false out there. But yeah, I mean, I think rum is also, you mentioned rum. I think that's also kind of the Wild West still. Like they've tried to, various distilleries and kind of rum aficionados have tried to enact some guidelines and official legalese, but I don't think any of it's actually been enacted. I mean, hell, like you said, Japan is really only now getting to it, and that's how many years?
Even with Japan, it's not a governmental thing.
Yeah, it's a
trade association.
Yeah, it's all voluntary.
Although I was very pleasantly surprised to see Nika admit that From the Barrel was blended instead of pure Japanese whiskey. It's basically their admittance of adding Ben Nevis to the blend.
Well, I mean, they never said Ben Nevis, but I mean, we don't know where they're getting scotch from. It could be any number of like wholesale suppliers.
Are we still going to do this?
Tiny distillery. They couldn't really source much from there, to be honest.
Ben Nevis doesn't do many OBs. They do some IBs, and Asahi owns Ben Nevis.
Yeah.
So unless they're sourcing, I mean, yes, it's possible that they're sourcing from. We'll get into this when we do Nika.
I'll tell you one thing I'll say, and that's the production capacity at Nika's two distilleries is much larger than Ben Nevis. So there'd be really zero reason to like pull whiskey from Ben Nevis and mix it into Nika blends. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of whiskey for sale on the open market in Scotland.
Yes, that's also very true.
Commodity whiskey, I guess you could call it, really, and it's for blending. And a number of Japanese producers, buy it and use it. So
absolutely,
that's all there is to say about that right
Motori
now.
buys Japanese or buys Scotch and blends it in Japan, I believe. So does Kuriyoshi, I believe, and that's not a knock against them. It's just that they're blending or just purchasing Scotch and then labeling it as Japanese, which is legal in Japan. It's allowed.
Yeah.
Japanese whiskey laws are very lax. Back on to Taiwanese whiskey, though, before I get myself in trouble.
Right.
John's just going to knock on the door. He's like, I'll be right back. And just take the bottles back.
I can tell you that all the Kavalan whiskey comes from the Kavalan distillery. That much I can 100% tell you.
My question was, is it non-chill filtered?
It is. I'm 90% sure. I haven't gotten that question in a while, so I'll double check that. But yeah, I know there's no caramel coloring added. And
that was my next one.
I don't believe they chill filter any of the whiskeys.
Gotcha. Yeah. So no caramel coloring, and we are 90% sure there's no chill filtration on Kavalan.
90%
cool.
Sure.
So onto this King Car. Tell us a little about the King Car Conductor.
So this happens to be probably my, I won't say favorite, but my most frequently consumed whiskey, Kavalan.
Really?
It strikes the best balance of everything. You know, it's the barrel makeup is very similar to the classic that we just had, in that there's bourbon barrels, sherry barrels, and wine barrels. Now the sherry barrels make up about 50% more of the blend than they do in the classic. And you're also bottled at 92 proof. So I see Kid Tree here just mentioned above 46%. So this is one of the 46%ers here. And yeah, basically you have a higher proof, and then you also have more sherry in this. And I think it shows pretty immediately. And to me, it just feels, I don't know, like a richer, kind of more full-bodied whiskey.
Right on. Also, welcome to Kid Tree. I don't believe I know who that is, but if I do, either way, welcome. Glad you're here. Thanks for chiming in. And as always, guys, if you're enjoying the show, please hit that like button, smack the subscribe button like a bartender smacking a tin. And remember to ding the notification bell. I go live every Tuesday, and I have a lot of really fun stuff coming out. I've been recording some reviews, some pre-recorded stuff. We've got some Lefroy reviews coming out. We'll have some more in-depth on Kavalan coming out in the next couple weeks. Going to be lots of fun. Also, hello to our friend Clifton from Bourbon Bites, who just turned in. Very fun. Welcome to the chat, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. We are on the Kavalan King Car Conductor. It is 46% ABV, and according to Kid Tree, anything above 46 from Kavalan Distillery is NCF. So I do enjoy a good non-chill filtered whiskey. This is interesting. So I just noticed on this one, I haven't seen this on any other bottle of Kavalan before. On the King Car, it's debossed. On the bottle is Kavalan Distillery with a laurel around it.
Yeah, you'll see that on the Sherry Oak and the other bottles you got too on there.
No.
It might be something like newer then, because that Sherry Oak bottle's pretty old, so that maybe they didn't have it on there. But like my bottle here's got it. That bottle should have it.
And then also there's this little medallion on here too, which is cool.
I love the medallion. That's what makes the bottle worth $600.
I'm sorry, how much?
Oh, retail on that PX cask is like $600 or $700. Yeah. Yeah, that's the one we finish with.
What PX cask? I don't have a PX cask.
Well,
I knew Kavalan was a luxury product. I'm sorry, John. What?
I said I got one here too. It's just got not much in it.
I said I knew that Kavalan, as we talked about, was a luxury whiskey, but I didn't realize that some of the SKUs got up to that high of a price tag. That's wow.
Yeah, when you get into the cask strength single barrel stuff, some of them are like not too bad, but then there's a whole series that gets into the kind of ridiculous range as far as price.
Matt says he needs King Car in his. Never seen it in Texas, he said.
Yeah,
but he needs King Car in his life.
Nice. In Texas, I got to talk to my Texas counterpart and see what's going on down there.
Let's say who represents Hotaling in Texas?
I think it's our NDC down there, but I don't really know what the distribution is for Kavalan in that part of the woods. There's got to be something available.
Those control states, man.
Yeah, right.
Texas's liquor laws are so antiquated. I mean, you can't buy liquor on Sunday until like 1 p.m. or something.
I mean, hopefully you got enough left from Saturday. I don't know. Real quick, one more thing about this King Car Conductor. So the name, technically the name of the whiskey is the Conductor, from King Car Group.
King Car, gotcha.
The reason for that is, as we mentioned earlier, King Car is the parent company to Kavalan, and King Car are frequently represented at trade shows. So, the same kind of show like you and I would go to at like World of Whiskey or something like that, where there's a bunch of tables sitting around and there's me or you behind it talking about whatever. So they have trade shows like that cover entire companies. And so Kavalan, they'll display things from every one of their subsidiaries. So you'll have the coffee, et cetera. And so when they display a whiskey, it's more likely than not going to be the King Car Conductor. And I never really found out if the reasoning for that was that was Ian's favorite, or it was just kind of like the easiest way to show like, hey, this is King Car whiskey. Like King Car owns this. But I like to think it was his favorite because it's my favorite.
This is not my favorite, actually. So far, it's my least favorite.
Oh, wow.
It's just so sour and tannic and...
Tannic, for sure.
It's not that it's bad. It's just not my palate.
Yeah, that's fair.
And that's the beauty of whiskey. It's not everything's for everybody. What are you getting on this, John?
I'm going to pour myself a little more, actually.
I should have just brought my 100 ml bottles with me and had you pour off the 100 mls for you while you were here and dropping these off.
Oh, that's all right. I poured myself enough.
Are you sure?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not coming back till the end of the week.
Oh, that's all right. I got more. I don't know. I mean, on this, I get a lot of fruit. Your typical kind of sherry fruits, but also a little butterscotch note, and I feel like that's probably more from the bourbon barrel aging. It's just kind of, it's covered up pretty significantly by all the dark fruit from the sherry.
Yeah, it's really hard to get that butterscotch there. It's really covered by, cherries and, more like those like really sweet. What you call that chocolate candy that's like cherry covered in chocolate?
Chocolate covered cherry?
No, the one in the pink wrapper.
I don't know. You're losing me on that one. Is it like the little Lindt chocolates or something?
No, it's not Lindt because it's not in like a fancy wrapper. It's like something you'd find, like my dad ate them growing up. Oh God. If someone knows what I'm talking about, please, for the love of God, say something in the comments. This is going to drive me crazy. And I can't just get up and walk over to the other room and ask him now.
Sure you can.
So do we want to move on to the special one in the box, or do we want to focus on, what do we want to focus on next?
So the two on your left are both cask strength. So yeah, the next one would be the box one for sure, which is going to be the sherry oak. This lovely guy.
Kid, Jerry, it might have been in tinfoil. I don't remember. I feel like it's just in a pink plastic wrapper.
I don't know.
Matt, I'll find you King Car if you find me Maker's Mark RC6. How's that for a deal? So this one I'm excited to. All the others I took out are like the boxes and the tins and stuff. Jane, it's not Tootsie Rolls. It's chocolate covered big cherry.
Cherry, I see this
Tom,
right here.
you motherfucking bastard! I love you. Thank you.
I think
beautiful son of a bitch.
I do
big
know
cherry.
Big cherry for sure. Hold on. Yeah, there it is. God, I haven't had one of those for a long, long time. Jeez.
So this box is so beautiful. I couldn't not bring the box to show on camera.
And that's not even the most beautiful box that we have. Like the PX cast comes in a really nice wood box even. That's gorgeous.
I mean, look at this, you guys. It's like fucking, it's got like, I don't know what this is, but like it's beautiful.
It's like satin, man. We like to keep them comfortable while they're
All right. This is the Kavalan Sherry Oak. Matt, this is the one you were excited for, it looks like.
So yeah, it occurred to me that like when I picked these bottles out for you, I really went hard on the sherry side of it. We do have ex-bourbon casks available as well for Kavalan, and maybe I should have grabbed one just for a little representation on the golden side of things. But I couldn't help myself with the sherry because that's really
Tom. That's it. Sorry, he just said he sent me a photo in a Discord.
Too funny.
A lot of us communicate over Discord, and that's it. That's it. It's big cherry. Thank you.
That looks like it's from like the 60s or 50s even, right? 50s probably.
I mean, my father is older, so yes, you did go very hard on the sherry. Holy sherry, mother of God. This looks like soy sauce.
Indeed, right?
Guys, woo. Look at how dark this is. Wow. It straight up looks like soy sauce, John.
Taiwanese soy sauce.
Wow. Taiwanese soy sauce.
Yeah.
So not Kikoman, Kavalan.
Kavalan, exactly.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was too stupid, but I couldn't resist.
So a little bit about this one. So this is again 92 proof, 46% ABV. This was launched probably about 5, maybe 6 years ago, but it was launched alongside an ex-bourbon barrel, also 92 proof, that we also have available and has a gold label. It looks just like this with a gold label. And these were launched as kind of a companion to the single barrels. So at that time, 5 or 6 years ago, we were getting the single barrels shipped to us from Kavalan, but they're really expensive. And so we asked them, hey, look, we love the cask program. We love, being able to offer somebody a single barrel of something that's bottled at cask strength. But we also would like to expand the range a little bit and, expand the number of people that can buy into this brand. So we said, basically, can you give us something that's maybe a little lower proof, maybe not a single barrel, that we can price a little bit more affordably? And so they came back with the sherry oak and the ex-bourbon barrel. And luckily, so, basically they took the proof down, obviously. So it's not cask strength, it's 92 proof, but it's also going to be a blend of several barrels. So they're small batch, basically. Now the barrels are all the same type of barrels. So this is all Oloroso sherry. The ex-bourbon version is all bourbon barrels. But you're blending a few different ones, so you're able to get a more consistent product, and you're able to price it at a more aggressive price. Not to say it's inexpensive, because this is still about $150 retail.
That's
maybe
not bad.
But yeah, I mean, it's
I just
something.
picked up a bottle of blended malt scotch earlier. It's actually in the room behind me. I was going to show it off. But I picked up a bottle of blended malt Big Pete for $2.20.
I haven't had that one for a while, man. Big Pete's good stuff.
But this was not just any ordinary Big Pete. It was the 26 year.
Yeah.
Bottled in 2018. 1992 vintage.
Oh.
Now that date's important. That year's important. It's my birth year. So when, St. Killian Imports presented it to me at the Pint early 2020, I'm like, I need this. And I'd forgotten about it until recently. I'm like, that bottle's still sitting there that I need to go and buy back from my boss.
Oh, wow. I mean, nobody's in there drinking it right now, at least. So I guess it's safe, right?
It was, I had to call him and he told me, all right, I can come, we can do it tomorrow. I talked to him yesterday. He's like, we can do it tomorrow. Or no, I talked to him Sunday, or was it Sunday or yesterday? He's like, we can do it Tuesday. I'm like, okay, cool. So I was there. I met one of the guys who worked there for 30 years. We both wore masks. He went into the back, grabbed the bottle, and I paid the boss and I left. And I'm very happy to have my bottle.
There you go.
Yeah, sadly the Pint is closed right now.
Yeah.
But hopefully we'll reopen in a few months.
Knock on wood on that one.
Oh, wow. Thanks a lot, you guys. Matt says, because Sam is a child. And Tom says, 1992. Am I Sam's daddy? No, I was in California in 88. And Emily says, we old and wise and shit.
Mm.
Guys, I keep telling you, I'm one of the youngest people who does this. A lot of you guys in the whiskey YouTubers and in the whiskey Discord and in the whiskey community are, 30, 40, 50 plus. I'm one of the youngest. And I'm proud of that. I wear it like a badge of honor. I wrote a book at 27, which is kind of cool.
And I bought a copy of that book at 41.
Cheers, John.
Cheers.
I'm gonna drink my whiskey soy sauce right now.
Really like it. You can dip your sushi in it too. What do you think? You like that one better than the Conductor?
So good.
Okay. All right. We found one. There we go. Brilliant. And here I was afraid that I should have brought a bourbon one, but yeah, I think.
Oh no, you did good by not bringing bourbon. I like bourbon. I love sherry. Tom says, I wish I had started earlier. Then I could afford a birthday bottle.
I gotta go back to 70.
You know what?
That's funny.
Oh,
yeah, I gotta go back to 79 to get a bottle, which is tough these days.
Pardon?
So I gotta go all the way back to 79 to get a bottle, which is not an easy prospect.
I mean, I feel like 79 is probably easier than 92.
I don't know.
More expensive.
Definitely more expensive, yeah.
I don't know, man. I have trouble finding 92s.
It's funny. One of my favorite whiskeys of all time was a 92 vintage. It was from Bruichladdich, and they released it in
the Black Art.
No, it was a Fino sherry cask, and it was a very limited release. This goes back to my bartending days. I was bartending a spot called Playa, which is now Petty Cash here in LA, and this was in like 20.
Petty Cash on Beverly?
Yeah, exactly. So there used to be a restaurant called Playa, and this was back in 2010, 2011. We had a bottle of this 1992 vintage Bruichladdich Fino Sherry Edition. And between myself and one of my other coworkers, we pretty much finished the bottle ourselves. Because like people that would come in didn't really know what the hell it was, and they were mostly ordering tequila anyway. So we very slowly and gradually worked our way through that bottle. And it was, to this day, if I could like find one bottle that I had in the past again, it would be that one. hands down.
I just ask for a taste.
If I ever find it, and trust me, I look like every 6 months or so, I do like a pretty detailed search online and shit to see if anybody maybe unearthed the bottle somewhere, but I haven't found it yet. I am starting to think that's probably going to be like the white whale for me.
Someone somewhere has it, and we can talk more about that offline. I think I can help you.
That would be excellent. Yeah, it certainly would entertain any help trying to find that bottle.
I think my bottle that I would go back to, God, what would it be? It used to be the Kilchoman Mocker Bay cask strength from like 2017, 2018 when they did the West Coast tour.
Mm-hmm.
But my palate shifted slightly recently where I'm not a big Kilchoman guy right now. I get a lot of Pachuga off of Kilchoman.
Interesting.
So it's kind of turned me off of Kilchoman temporarily. Ooh, Topachuga will do it to you.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember if I had that because I attended a Kilchoman dinner up at not the Double Barrel, but what's the other spot?
Saddle Peak Lodge.
Yeah, up at Saddle Peak Lodge. You might have been there for all I know.
I wasn't there. I didn't work for him at that point.
That one, no. It was Chris Uday was leading it, of course, and we tried, I don't know, 5 or 6 different ones, and I feel like maybe that was one of them. Maybe it wasn't cast strength though. I'm not sure. Yeah,
I have the cast strength Mocker Bay. When I give you the bottle back, I'll give you some.
Yeah, great. I'd love to try it.
I have it open. I opened it a few months ago, so it's not a lot of evap and not a lot of oxygen to change it.
Yeah.
Tom said there are some really interesting Bruichladdich you can find at auctions.
I was just reading that.
Yeah.
Definitely. I've looked at a few auctions. I haven't come across the white whale yet, but yeah, I probably need to pay more attention to the auctions more than anything else. That's a good point.
I'm trying to think what one whiskey would I know what it is.
Nope.
Laphroaig 18.
Oh man, good choice. Yeah.
Laphroaig 18 started me on my Peter Scott's journey.
Mm.
A gentleman whom I unfortunately no longer talk to, we were really, really good. We were best friends at the time. But, people change. We grow apart. They drop you because you can't come to their housewarming party because you're working in a brand new bar that's opening and it's your second day. But that's neither here nor there. For my 25th birthday, I feel like, maybe even 24th, he called my father. He's like, what is Sam into right now? What is Sam like? And Dad's like, he likes scotch a lot.
A lot.
So he went to Bevmo and probably bought the most expensive scotch with the highest age statement that he could afford or that he was willing to spend. I was guffawed when I looked at the price. It was like $200. I mean, now I look at a price for an 18-year scotch. I'm like, $200? Okay.
Right.
But back then, I'm like, $200? Matt, let's talk offline. If that's sealed, I want it. Matt said, thankfully, he still has an 18 Laphroaig.
Nice.
Fino Sherry, 2006 in a German auction.
Well, so was it distilled in 2006 or was it bottled in 2006? Because if it was bottled in 2006, that might be the same or similar to the one that I had. I don't remember what the age statement actually was on the bottle. I just remember that it was distilled in 92.
John, welcome to the power of the whiskey community.
Love it. Love it.
I take it over the sherry oak.
It's good, isn't it? I mean, this is, like I mentioned, they came out with this as a 92 proof version of the cask strength. And because it's a small batch and not a single barrel, the consistency is fantastic. So, this bottle of sherry oak is going to taste just like the one I have, the one you have, I should say. And it's good. Distilled 2006, I see. Oh, 45 years. I can afford that. Shit.
Distilled 06, bottled 2016.
I mean, if it's a Fino Sherry barrel, I would take it in a second, because if it's, you know, anything remotely close to that 92, then it's real good.
Tom, if you would be kind enough to send me the link, I'll send it to John after we're done.
Yeah, definitely. I would appreciate it. Of course, the shipping.
Unless Tom wants a bottle of Kavalan for it.
The shipping will be like $100, but that's okay. Yeah, there we go. 70. All I need to do is order a couple bottles then to make it worth the shipping. That's how they get you, obviously.
Plus tariffs. Oh. Mm-hmm. Are there tariffs from Germany, though?
I don't know. There might be ways around that.
Oh, God. Of course there are ways around it.
Hey, Sam, I'm curious. When was the last time you had the Lafroig 15?
It's been a hot minute, actually.
That's like, I've had the 18, and I really do like the 18. But the 15 was one that I can't remember the first time I had it. It might have been here in LA somewhere, like $7,000 or something. But I've definitely had it.
Ever had the 15?
Oh man, I've had it outside the country a couple times while traveling, because they apparently get it a lot more outside the U.S. And I mean, it holds up, because, you know, obviously peat tends to fade off the longer it stays in the barrel.
Yeah.
So 15 is a nice balance where you still get some of that kind of young, aggressive peat to it. But you also get a lot of, you know, nice mellowing from the barrels too. If you see it, definitely give that one a try next time you see it.
Last week we had Simon Brooking on the show, and we talked Lafroig. We went through the 10 Sherry Oak, which is brand new and it isn't even in market yet, not even released yet.
Wow.
The Carchus from 2016, Carchus 2020, and the 25. And we talked about doing the 15 or the 16, but we weren't able to source it in time. So unfortunately, we didn't get to try it again last week. I'm trying to think. I still don't even remember if I've ever actually had it. Which is interesting. You know, the beauty of whiskey is that there's just so much out there to explore. And I really, truly love that.
Absolutely.
It's fun. You know, I may have had this before, the Sherry Oak, but I've never had the real true time dedicate to it.
Mm.
I mean, do you remember the lineup we had when Ian Shane was in market?
Vaguely, yeah. It was you know, pretty stellar lineup from what I recall.
Yeah, let me find it real quick. I have the photo in my Nomad Hotel.
Yeah, I want to say
this is why I'm grateful for Google Photos.
Through like a few of the really crazy bottlings, like this PX one. Like we might have had the Muscatel, which is a personal favorite as well, or maybe the Amontillado. In fact, I want to say the Amontillado was almost definitely part of that.
You remember what day that was?
Oof, man, you're asking me the wrong question.
Okay, do you remember what month that was?
Definitely not.
Oy vey.
I don't even remember what year that was at this point. Was that 2019? 2018 maybe?
That was 19.
It was 19, yeah, okay.
I
don't know, what is it?
Found
20,
it.
Is it
I found it. I legitimately found it. Okay, hang on, let me share my screen real quick, you guys. Share screen. Chrome tab. Google Photos. That was the lineup, John.
I don't see anything. Oh, there we go. Okay.
Hang on. Wait a second.
Yeah, it wasn't.
There we go.
It wasn't this series, but it was. So I see the Concertmaster, the King Car. The gold label is the ex-bourbon that I was mentioning, which is the small batch. The Sherry Oak, which we're tasting now. The blue label is the Vino Barrique.
Vino Barrique and the port cask.
Yeah, and the port cask, exactly. So yeah, we currently don't have any port cask. We do have some Vino Barrique floating around. And for anybody that's unfamiliar with the Vino Barrique, that
Speaking of Kavalan's climate, by the way.
What's that?
Here's some information on Kavalan's climate, you guys.
Yeah.
Summer heat extraction, 33 degrees Celsius. It intensifies the flavor of it. It gives it a sandpaper effect. I don't know what they were talking about there. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I don't recall anything about sandpaper.
You guys saw the lineup. We had quite a few drinks that day.
Yeah, it was a good day.
It was a great day. Here's another photo. Looks like we had both of them here.
Yeah.
We had the
I think it's right when the Distillery Select came out, actually, and that's the
port cask right there, John.
Yeah, the port finish.
Yeah, the port finish and then Distillery Select.
Mm-hmm.
And there is myself and Dr. Chang. Is it Doctor? I keep wanting to call him Dr. Chang, and I'm like, is that actually correct? Is he a doctor?
I don't think so. Jim Swan is a doctor, yeah, but
Jim Swan was a doctor.
I think Ian Chang maybe did not have a doctorate, from what I know. He's a great blender, though, and it's just, phenomenal scientist.
Kid Tree says soloist port.
Yep. That's let me touch on that for a second. So soloist.
Please, the floor is yours, sir.
And soloist is what they call the single barrels in Taiwan and probably in Europe too, I believe. But here in the U.S., we couldn't put the soloist title on any labels because of some trademark issue. And I don't even know where the trademark issue comes from, but it's just somebody holds a trademark for that particular name. And the TTB barred us from putting it on the labels. So, this, for instance, is the same type of bottling as the soloist is in Taiwan. But I frequently get people, maybe that have had a soloist release outside the country. They're like, hey, where can I find this soloist stuff? And I'm like, look, it's the same juice. We just can't put the name on the bottle. So if anybody's looking,
he's not a doctor, but a whiskey god.
I won't argue with that.
Neither will I. And he's also so humble. I really like Ian.
Great guy, yeah, for sure. Kuroizawa was lucky to have him, definitely.
Oh my God, are you kidding me? And like you were saying, it's a huge, plus for Kavalan that, I'm assuming they headhunted him away from Kavalan.
I think there's a good chance of that, yeah.
Which means that he was sought after because they saw what he's been doing with Kavalan. Mm-hmm. Now, here's a stupid question. Does Kavalan mean anything?
Not a stupid question, actually. So Kavalan were the native people in that area of Taiwan where the distillery is built. And so as a tribute, if you will, they named the distillery after the people that had lived there many, many, many years ago.
That's cool. Hmm. And is there still, descendants of the Kavalan people around? Do we know that?
That I do not know. But I like to hope so.
I would hope so.
Maybe
I think they're really cool, actually.
Yeah, right.
Maybe some of the descendants started working at the distillery. Tom said he sent me the details in Discord for your bottle, John.
Nice. Yeah, definitely shoot that to me after this for sure, and
I will
see what I can grab. Yeah, that's. Amazing.
I couldn't help myself. I poured more of the sherry oak.
Yeah, don't sweat it. Pour as much as you like.
Well, in that case.
Well, don't forget the next one is a cask strength version of this, so you got a ways to go.
That's true. We do still have 2 more expressions to go through. But let's take a quick, 30-second pause on that. Matt, we know you need King Car. He's saying the Vino Barrique is amazing.
Yep.
I actually just recommended some Vino Barrique last night. There is a retailer up in the Sacramento area that was upset about allocations from a large whiskey house. Mm-hmm. And this house controls a well-known Asian whiskey brand. And this retailer was upset regarding allocation, and they'd sworn off this whiskey house. And I said, you know what? Honestly, I prefer Taiwanese whiskey. I prefer Kavalan to this specific set of Asian whiskey. I don't want to get into too many details.
Sure.
I want to respect this retailer, even though they did post it publicly on Facebook. I want to respect this retailer, and also, I don't want to have this. Anyway, I said, look, honestly, I would take a Kavalan over a Japanese whiskey. Let's be honest, it's Japanese whiskey. Because, well, yes, Kavalan is a little pricey, or it's a little more of a luxury brand. Taiwanese whiskey, because of the angel share, because of the import fees, and because of everything else that adds up, it's a more expensive product. It's easier to get than Japanese whiskey.
Generally, yeah.
I can call you up tomorrow. I'm like, hey, John, I fell in love with that sherry oak. Give me 5 accounts and have it.
Yep.
And you can pull up your diver and like this, and that should have it.
Absolutely.
Whereas Japanese whiskey, if I call you up and I'm like, hey, who has Nika Takatsuru 17 here? You'll be laughing your ass off like, good luck, Sam. And that's the thing. That's not to say Nika's not good whiskey, or Japanese whiskey isn't good whiskey. I'm just saying that, I find that Kavalan, because Taiwanese whiskey is such an underrated, underknown category right now, is easier to find and get a hold of than Japanese whiskey, which is blown up in the last 3 years.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate statement for sure. And it kind of depends too, I'll say the Kavalan tends to be a little pricier, but it really depends on where you're buying it from. A lot of retailers will jack up the price on Japanese stuff way beyond where it should be. And that's, because it's scarcity.
That's unfortunate.
But it also might be a little price gouging. I don't know. But yeah.
Also, quick hello to our friend Alicia Shu, who's in the comment section right now. She is a big fan of Kavalan. She's actually from Taiwan and is friends with several people, globally who work with King Car and Kavalan, and she's based in Bay Area right now.
Oh, cool.
So, cheers. Thanks for tuning in.
Always happy to see a fan of Kavalan, certainly.
So, speaking from your experience, as the regional sales manager for Los Angeles, what has your experience been with Kavalan? How's it been received when you first got it, and how is it now? Are you getting calls for, hey, John, or hey, Jonathan, you got that new Kavalan release, or hey, you got any Kavalan? Or are you still having to, push it on people like, hey, just trust me and try this?
So it's kind of a combination of both, really. I don't think it's not quite there yet where the demand is outstripping the supply. Except on certain releases, certainly some of the cast strength stuff, that Vino Barrique in particular, can be a little hard to find just because it tends to sell out a lot faster. But in general, it's cool. I'll tell you this. So last year I had a retail account that the owner of the account called me and said, hey, look, I've got a customer who tried a bottle of, I think it was King Car or something like that, and really loved it, and wants to check out some of the higher price stuff too. This was a real estate developer. And so he put me in touch with them, and I poured a couple samples down and dropped them off. And he ended up picking up, I think it was the Fino Sherry edition and maybe one of the other ones. So that was very much like a word of mouth sale. The word of mouth came from a store owner who was already very familiar with the product and knew the quality was, at a very high level. And so that's why I say it's kind of a combination of both. There's some word of mouth for sure. But there's also some people that are trying, the Distillery Select, for instance, and then upgrade it, stepping up to a sherry oak or something like that.
Yeah.
So we are starting to see some organic growth, definitely. But it is
that would make sense to me, the jump from this to this.
Yeah.
The flavor profile is similar enough. They're nowhere near close, but they're similar enough where you get some of the sweetness and sherry and stewed fruits from this.
Mm-hmm.
That's jumping to this, which is, pure sherry oak, or a sherry oak finish, rather. Sorry. Just instead of being a component, it's the finishing. It makes sense. And, yeah, no. Anyway, please continue. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's pretty much my point right there. Yeah, is people are stepping up, which is nice. I mean, it's one thing to try a brand and say, okay, that was cool to try, but I don't really want to check out anything else. It was okay. But what we're seeing is people trying the brand and then really wanting to branch out and try the other releases. And so that's
absolutely
great. That's great to see.
And that's how I feel about Kavalan. It's like, I don't even remember when I tried it the first time. You had to have been the one to introduce me to it, though.
I hope so.
Because ever since I met you at that Nika dinner, we just happen to always be in the same territory. Damien now runs the Valley, and you seem to run, everything not the Valley.
It's pretty accurate, yeah.
And I don't know, dude. I just feel like you were the one to introduce me to Kavalan at probably Double Barrel.
It's possible, yeah. Yeah, good chance. Oh, but you were familiar. You'd heard of it at least. You were familiar with the brand.
I heard of it, of course, but I hadn't tried it.
Yeah.
And that's, the quote-unquote downside to having so much of an open market is that there's just so much stuff out there that it's hard to have tried everything, and it's hard to know what you have and haven't tried sometimes.
Right.
Because like at whiskey shows, for instance, that's what it was. I had always missed the Kavalan table at whiskey shows. I think one day I just found Kavalan at a whiskey show. I was probably already drunk. Because by the time the end of a whiskey show rolls around, most of us are drunk, let's be honest here.
They're pretty brutal for sure.
But I think I finally tried Kavalan either at a whiskey show. It might have been I wonder if it was a 7 grand anniversary.
I'm trying to think of that one. I feel like we didn't have Kavalan there. I think that was more American whiskey, if I remember correctly. But there was one
not sure.
We attended at the Biltmore probably 4 years ago, and I
Whiskey Extravaganza, yeah.
Whiskey X, I think, right? And we definitely had Kavalan.
No, Whiskey X was always in the Barker hangar in the Santa Monica airport. Whiskey Extravaganza, when it was running by the Scotch Malt Whiskey Society of America, was at the Biltmore in the ballroom there.
Okay, so yeah, that's the Biltmore one for sure. But we definitely had Kavalan at that event. I remember that distinctly.
Alicia just said she just got back to Taiwan and visited the distillery. It's amazing. She likes the Fino and the Vino.
Good choices. Good choices. The Fino is arguably my favorite. I didn't have a sample for this tasting, but
hopefully, I would love to try it soon. Hopefully someone can arrange a sample. Even just, a couple ounces would be amazing to try.
I'll see what
I feel like Fino Sherry is such an uncommon finisher. Or even maturation is usually, sweeter sherries like Oloroso, Pedro Jimenez, or even, Amontillado on a rare occasion. But to do a Fino Sherry, because of that briny, kind of savory aspect of the Fino, it's really bizarre for a whiskey because, whiskey, you definitely usually want a sweeter finish, which is why you do, like a PX or an Oloroso cask. But, because you want the complement, you don't want the contrast,
Mm-hmm.
Matt says, Kavalan is way better than Japanese. Tastes different, but amazing. Some of the best whiskey in the world.
There we go.
And then Alicia said she invited Andrew Lee as well, whom I talked to. but she's not sure if he's watching. Andrew, if you are here, please, we'd love for you to chime in and say hello in the comments. Guys, as always, comments, questions, and smart remarks are encouraged.
Now, just to verify, that Andrew Lee would be Mr. Lee's son who attended school here in LA, I believe, yeah? Well,
Probably.
I haven't actually talked to in a couple of years. I believe, if I remember correctly, he moved back to Taiwan.
Yeah, that Andrew Lee.
Right on.
Somehow,
I
don't really remember. Thanks to Alicia, I got in a connection with him.
That's great.
Alicia's actually talking about the ex-bourbon one. Not sure if we have it out here yet. She feels like the American market would definitely love it.
Yeah.
There definitely is ex-bourbon out here, unless there's a specific release you're talking about. John decided to focus on the sherry cask today, which I'm not mad about at all. So we really do love a good sherry cask whiskey. Here.
Yeah. So the ex-bourbon oak is available full time, and then we occasionally get the single barrels too. I don't know if anything's in the market right now, but yeah, we probably will have some available in the next year, I would guess.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. It's tasty, man. It's tasty. Whole different beast than the sherry, to be honest. I mean, the color.
Oh my God, you're talking night and day.
Yeah.
You're talking sweet versus what's essentially savory, comparatively speaking.
Yeah. Well, speaking of sherry casks, I'm going to move on to this tiny sherry cask sample. And
Are you doing the white or the blue?
The white. The white would be the one.
The white. Okay.
So it's a full strength version of the one we just had.
Of the one I fell in love with.
So this is you have the bottle, so you can tell me, but I want to say it's about 56%, something like that.
57.8.
All right, yeah, so a little bit on the higher end. Nice. Add some water if you want, or don't.
I always like to taste it straight up first, and if I feel it deserves, if it needs water, not deserves, but I feel like if it needs water, I'll add water after. I prefer to taste it at full proof and full strength to get the best, idea of what it tastes like. What the fuck?
That's the proper response, I think, actually, yeah.
Even the cat agrees with me.
Oh, did you hear my cat?
Yeah.
One of my cats? I think she's
one hungry. Of your cats.
She's going to have to wait a little bit.
This is insane. There's so much going on. Okay,
oh, yeah.
So first and foremost, movie theater buttered popcorn. Back on the nose palette.
Mm-hmm. On the nose palette.
Blondies. So,
there we go. She wants to be a star. She loves
hi, kitty.
Yeah.
What's the cat's name, John?
Oh, this is Donna Summer.
Donna Summer. Hi, Donna Summer.
Obviously. Oh, there we go. All right, get out of here.
I don't know if baking wise, ingredient wise, between a blondie and a brownie. But I feel like flavor wise, there's a slight difference.
That's a good call. I'm getting blondie on this for sure.
Blondie's more vanilla, while brownie's more chocolate. I feel like.
Yeah.
Blondies are vanilla brownies.
Vanilla or like butterscotch, maybe. I don't even know, but
I don't get butterscotch, but you get vanilla extract. I get sassafras and sarsaparilla.
That's a good call. The sarsaparilla is something I didn't really pick up, but I see where that's coming from, definitely.
Making way, I know it's really weird, but I swear to God, I'm not bullshitting. In the A&W, or maybe even Doc Brown,
Little root beer?
soda.
Oh, cream soda. Okay. Yeah.
Bye, Matt. Thanks for tuning in. He's got to go drop off some whiskey samples to his cohorts, Will and Sarah.
Cheers to that.
Probably for their review date coming up, because they review, they shoot 10 to 12 whiskeys usually at a time. 10 to 12 bottles at a time, including liqueurs, because they have a weekly liqueur series. So that's fun to watch too. I actually got yelled at recently, quote unquote, because I suggested, what was it I suggested? Was it Jaeger or Fernet?
I mean, if you suggested,
I don't remember.
I can yell at you.
You can't yell at me. Luxardo makes a Fernet.
It's delicious too. I consume way too much of it, to be honest.
I've never had it.
At this point, I actually prefer it. I've had a lot of Fernet Branca in my day, but I've tried a number of different ones, and most of them I don't prefer to Branca, but the Luxardo, I actually have become so accustomed to it that that's my go-to. It's less.
I love Branca,
yeah.
But I feel like for me, Jelinek is just the slight edge over Branca.
Oh, not bad. Yeah, that's good stuff. Good night.
Emily, cream soda and sarsaparilla, not instead of. She said cream soda and not sarsaparilla, but no.
All the above.
Definitely both.
All the above.
So C, all of the above, cream soda and sarsaparilla. Whoa. Going back in, I get candy corn. That overly sweet, slightly caramely. Wow. So this bottle is gone, but what was it retailing for?
This was actually surprisingly affordable for a cask strength Kavalan. Retail was probably about $225.
I'd pay that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. So
if I could try it first, here's the thing. I'm spoiled by my job in that I get to try oftentimes before I buy.
Yeah, that's fortunate, definitely.
So for me, it's if I get to try it first and I fall in love like I am right now, I'll buy a bottle or maybe two.
Yeah. Well, I'll let you know as soon as we get another cask of this to sell, because currently we don't have any in the United States.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right now there's 0 Oloroso barrels in the U.S. I'm hoping that changes.
Wait, hang on. Back up. I'm sorry. This is Oloroso.
This is, yeah.
I don't know why. I didn't realize it was Oloroso. You mentioned it several times, but this is not Oloroso in a typical manner. This is definitely more a PX flavor-wise. Or aromatic-wise, I feel
what
like.
What are you trying to PX?
Mm-hmm. Okay, so... Woo! Damn! Oh,
yeah.
Wow. 57.8 is
15.6.
Okay, thank you. I'm a bartender for a reason, man.
Trust me, my math skills are terrible, but when it comes to calculating ABVs, somehow I can do that in my head pretty easily.
I can't. I was about to be like, it's 120 something. So on the aromatics, on the nose, it's definitely sweeter than a typical Oloroso. it has those vanillas, those caramels, the sarsaparilla and cream soda. It has a caramel-y butterscotch, almost Werther's caramel. Shut up, Tom. He said, Sam's awake now. Appreciate you, buddy. On the nose, it's got those, kind of salty caramels. Not salty, savory caramels. I'm so used to saying salty caramel. Savory caramel and cream soda and vanilla extract and sarsaparilla. But on the palate, it drinks totally differently. And it is very rare that I come across a whiskey that is like this.
That's why we sell out of them.
With the high proof, it's numbing my gums, drying them out, making me salivate. Alicia said that Kavalan recently launched the Artist Series, a new range of expressions that aims to highlight the fine art of whiskey. It's tasty, 4 bottles in a box, puncheon, virgin oak, French wine cask, and peated malt. Peated malt. She tried it in the bar and it's pretty good. Sold out already. You guys can check online.
Those sound fantastic, but they are not available in the U.S. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, hopefully, eventually, but not right now.
Hopefully, eventually. Yeah, no shit. Hopefully, eventually. So the peated malt is an interesting one. I got to try a peated release that was in progress a couple years ago. The last time, pre-pandemic, last time Kavalan had anybody out in the States, and it wasn't quite ready yet to be bottled, but it was on its way and it tasted great. And from what I know, their plan was to release a number of peated releases in the same vein as the regular releases. But, COVID and whatever else got in the way of that a little bit. So we haven't seen them in the U.S. yet. But I'm hoping, at some point this year, maybe early next year, we'll see some of the peated stuff too.
Thank you, Emily, by the way. Sorry. She just chimed in saying, I yelled that for Fernet and Campari.
Ferrari?
No, not a Ferrari. And by the way, they're fitters now, not Ferraris, they're fitters. It's Fernet and Carpano bitter.
It's a Ferrari.
No, it's a fitter. Ferraris you're done with. No more Fernet and Campari. It's now, unless you want to do non-Branca. Now it's a Fernet Branca and a Carpano bitter. It's a fitter.
A fitter. That's cool. Well, we could say Luxardo Fernet and Luxardo bitter, and that would be a fitter for sure. So I'll take that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds dope, actually.
I bet it'd be pretty good.
When we can drink together again, John, we should do that together. Try a fitter of Luxardo together.
Luxardo fitter? I'm down. We could even use the aperitivo and do a aperitivo.
Ooh, fancy. I'm about it. What was I gonna say? Oh, right. A peated Kavalan sounds really intriguing because there's a little bit of like a smoky aspect to the Distillery Select and the King Car Conductor. But to have a Kavalan that's actually intentionally peated would be fantastic. I'm really curious to try that, and I really hope they release it soon.
Me too. I haven't really heard anything since I got to try it a couple years ago, unfortunately. But I'm hopeful that they send us something soon, hopefully.
Have you ever been over there, John?
No, I was lined up to go not last summer, obviously, but the summer before. And there was something of a scheduling conflict on their end, and unfortunately got canceled not long before I was supposed to go. So I didn't get to make it. And I believe their intention was to make it up in 2020, and obviously that didn't happen.
Yeah.
So I still have my fingers crossed that at some point, maybe next year, I will still get the invite to go out there. So we'll see. We'll see. It's
certainly would.
I mean, out of all the brands we import, I would say this is probably the top of my list for places I'd like to go.
So real quick, actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Tell everyone a little about what you actually do, because you work for Hotaling until you don't work for Kavalan directly.
Mm-hmm.
What is Hotaling? I mean, obviously you and I know, but some people may not know.
Sure.
And, can you just mention a few brands that you represent?
Yeah. Thank you for asking. So, we're a distiller and importer. Hotaling, once upon a time, was known as Anchor Distilling and was associated with Anchor Brewing, which if anybody's had Anchor steam beer, that's the bread and butter there at Anchor Brewing. So the distillery was actually at the brewery in San Francisco, and we started with Old Potrero rye whiskey back in 1993, which was basically
one.
What's that?
I was one.
Oh boy. Well, so Old Potrero was basically the first, not the first, but the first new American craft whiskey in many, many years. And was modeled after kind of old school rye whiskey from the early 1900s, and it's still being made to this day with 100% malted rye, which is fairly unique, and it's still being made to this day in San Francisco. And so then 3 years later, in '96, we launched Junipero Gin, which is also still being made to this day in San Francisco, and is one of my favorite gins. Very juniper forward if you can find it. Great Negroni. But so. The distilling side started there, and the import side started with Price Imports, Henry Price, who's a pretty storied name in the liquor business.
Okay, so quick side note.
Yeah.
I was in San Diego the day after Christmas. I had to go meet a friend of mine who had gone to Texas and brought back some bottles for me. So I meet up with him. He hands me the bottles. We're distant in mass, of course. As you do right now. And I'm like, hey, I've got to make one more stop, and I want to fuck with my friend. I want to ice him.
Oh, boy.
Where can I get an ice nearby? He directs me. He's like, go left, go right, go right, go left, go right. It'll be next to this pizza place. So I stop off at this liquor store next to a pizza place, and I buy a Smirnoff Ice. And I can't help myself. I tried, John. I tried. I really did. But I walked over to the whiskey section.
Right.
And on the shelf, covered in dust, was a Ben Riach 10-year Heart of Speyside edition and a Glengoyne 17, the old label.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, dope, a Ben Riach. I love Ben Riach. I love, Glendronach. I love Glengwassa. So I buy the Ben Riach. It's like $75. I'm like, or not even actually. It was like 50 something, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, that's a decent price. I'll buy it. I get home, and I'm looking at the back of the bottle. Now remember, I drove to San Diego. Then I drove to Orange County, and then I drove back to Sherman Oaks, Studio City. Now I was in I don't remember exactly what part of Orange County I was in. I want to say Yorba Linda. But remember, LA County to San Diego County to Orange County back to LA County. So finally I get home, it's 6, 7 o'clock at night. I take the bottle out the tube to look at it and take photos. I mean, the laser code was back to 2012 or whatever, I think. And here's the kicker. It was imported by Price.
Yep. Henry Price, man.
I believe, if my timeline is correct, it went Price, Anchor, Brown-Forman.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. That'd be correct. So Henry Price, he has an import company today, vastly different.
Price Imports.
Yeah, but he relaunched it, and I think they have a couple brands. He might do a lot of wine. I'm not sure, but the import company he had back then was
Distillers Art, I believe, is one of theirs.
Yeah, it was a beast. And so our previous owners basically bought the distillery from Fritz Maytag, who owned it at the time, and the brewery, and bought Price Imports.
Wait, Maytag like appliances?
And cheese, yeah. So that whole family. So Fritz Maytag.
Hell?
Fritz Maytag resuscitated Anchor Brewing in 1975, relaunched Anchor Steam, and then built the whole brewery out with like Liberty Ale and all that stuff, and then added the distillery in the 90s. Fritz is retired at this point, but he was really the driving force behind our company in the very beginning. And then the folks that took it over, like I said, merged Price Imports with the distillery, and we became a distiller/importer, and that's what we are to this day. And so, we've cycled through some brands like Ben Riach, you mentioned, is no longer with us. Glendronach was another one we imported that's no longer with us. Glenrothes is yet another one that we imported that's no longer with us. But fortunately, we in recent years have picked up a brand new set of Scotch brands. Since we're talking about Scotch, which include Anach,
Speyburn, and Ball Blair, and
exactly.
Old Pulteney.
Those four, and then also the Aaron malt, which, just to give a little shout out, just rebranded and repackaged, and has never tasted better than it does today. So if you see any of the new Aaron malt,
I have seen so many brands doing repacks recently, and Aaron is the only one I have not absolutely hated.
They did a great job. I mean, they did all that before we acquired the import rights, so that was already all done. Like the brands have been relaunched in Europe, but I've had the pleasure of relaunching that brand here in the United States in the last 2 months, and the reception has been incredible. Especially, and I shouldn't say this because we're going to sell out, but their sherry cask strength release is phenomenal. And it's affordable. I mean,
K&L has the Bothy.
Yeah.
Aaron the Bothy for like $55.
They have the old bottles. And they're trying to clear them out to make new ones. And so, if you snag that old bottle, it's the same juice and it's delicious.
Tom says he's not sure if you're right. He's like, I don't know, man. My 14 is pretty damn tasty in terms of never tasting better.
That's the one thing I am a little ticked about is the 14's not continuing for the time being. So we have a 10, we have the 18, we have the quarter cask, we have the sherry cask, and then we also have Barrel Reserve, which is the new entry.
So actually, Johnny, you brought up a really good point. Now that you mentioned Aaron, since Hotaling and Co is importing the Aaron Scotch whiskey, can we expect to see more fun stuff and some White Stag releases coming into America now? With the recent change of 70 CL, 700 ml allowed?
That's a really good question. I wish I had an answer for that, but that change in the law is so recent that I don't even think, I don't think anybody really knows how we're going to be able to capitalize on that. Even if we are importing a 700 ml that is legally allowed to be imported, we still have to go through TTB labeling restrictions, and that's a whole other deal on its own, man. Like that, so that could restrict things on its own. So I like where it's going, and I hope to God that we're able to bring in some of those special releases that we don't normally see, but I just don't know. And with that said, I'm going to drink some of this PX cask.
I'll join you. So I did take a sneak of the PX cask while you were talking.
Sure.
Because a minute when I'm not talking is a blessing for everybody else. So I have to, take them when I can. And, hang on, ambulance.
That was on your end. I thought it was outside of my house.
On my end. No, on my end. My offices and my studio is right on a major thoroughfare street, so we get a lot of that. So comparing it to actually the Oloroso, Tom says 700 ml, bring it all, use stickers.
Shit, man, if it was me putting the stickers on, I'd be all for that.
Comparing it actually to the Oloroso, it's a complete 180, but not in the way you'd expect. This guy, here, let me move these out of the way since we've tasted already. The PX cask is much more savory than the Oloroso. Sweet, savory.
It's the exact opposite of what you'd expect, right?
Exact opposite, which is fascinating me right now.
What's the proof on your PX?
On this PX cask, we're clocking in at 56.3, John.
Okay, mine too. So I think this is actually the same cask, so that's good.
What's the last three of your cask number?
20A.
20A.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Which bottle are you?
71.
245. There you
go. This says Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, single cask strength, Kavalan whiskey. Every cask is specially selected by the master blender for its distinct character and fine distillery quality. Each bottle is meticulously bottled and labeled for your unique sampling pleasure.
There you go. And apparently Alicia likes that one too. So
she said she loves that one too. So actually, John, Alicia was my connect to Caitlin Tsai, who's now the global brand ambassador for Kavalan.
Gotcha.
So Alicia has been a huge help connecting into Taiwan and getting, in touch with Taiwan if I have any questions. Or, for me, I was looking to get on the press release media list. So it's been amazing. So Alicia has been a huge help. So thank you so much to her for that.
Thank you, Alicia. Yeah, I still have not connected with the new global brand ambassador myself. So it's in the works.
All in due time, right, John?
I hope our brand manager is in contact. I would assume so. Here on the streets, it's not important.
Would that be Courtney?
Not any longer. No. Right now it is. I gotta double check. Actually, we just kind of go around. So
shouldn't you know who your boss is?
No, it's not my boss.
Oh.
Well, that's marketing, buddy. That's marketing. I'm in sales. I'm in sales and I believe is the other.
The absolute 180 on this is boggling my mind. Because like you said, with a PX cask that this is, you expect it to be much sweeter. But this is much meatier, much more pepper, much literally beefier.
Mm.
Don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely in love with both of these casks, and I'm mad at how much this one costs because I knew this was going to happen. I want this, but I can't reason. I can buy it, sure, but then I'm almost broke for 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it's
not trying to get money.
It's a good portion of your rent, generally speaking. Yeah.
Not even a good portion. This is my rent.
You have great rent.
I'm fortunate that living with my mother right now, I pay $700, $600-700 a month in rent.
That's one bottle right there. Then, yeah, for sure.
This is literally my rent.
Too funny.
My mother doesn't drink, so I can't be like, "Hey, Mom, here's a $700 bottle of Taiwanese whiskey for rent." She'd be like, "Okay, why are you giving this to me? I need money to pay, the rent. I can't pay my money. I can't pay rent with a bottle of Taiwanese whiskey, Sam."
It'd be great if you could, though.
Tom says sales and sipping, tough job. Emily says, great job, y'all. She cannot wait to try it. Also, good night. And then Alicia says, you're welcome. Love to help you guys connect. So we're just about to brush up on the 2-hour mark, you guys. I know we got started a little late and we've run over to 6:03. So, John,
Yes, sir.
As we close out with this final dram of Kavalan, is there anything we didn't touch on that you wanted to mention?
Not a lot. Yeah, I think we covered kind of all the big points on production and aging. The one thing I will mention is, we don't actually import it at the moment, but Kavalan makes a gin too, which is
when can we see that in market?
We'll see. I'm not sure actually. There's been talk about bringing it in, but for the time being, it's going to stay in Taiwan. But yeah, they're branching out a little bit, which I think is kind of cool. Same way the Japanese producers are doing, gin and vodka now as well.
Absolutely.
Built a name for themselves enough that it's like, well, hey, look, not only do we make great whiskey, but we can do other things too. And really the peated stuff, I'm looking forward to seeing that too. So,
dude, I cannot wait for that.
I'll let you know as soon as I know anything about that. But
please.
Yeah.
Although I might know before you.
It's possible. Yeah, it's definitely
considering possible. I'm on the media list now. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you as always so much for joining us. I was really looking forward to this. I was, I planned a few months in advance. So earlier this year, and it might have even been, late last year, I'm like racking my brain. I'm like, all right, who am I going to bring on? Who am I going to have next? And I'm like, I need to fucking have Kavalan on the show.
There we go.
The whiskey's amazing. I'm in love with it. And I'm going to be honest, it was partly selfish because I wanted to drink more Kavalan, but I didn't want to, go and buy like 8 bottles of it.
I appreciate your honesty. And that's, I don't blame you, really. So.
Alicia says they sell the gin and tonic in a can at 7-Elevens.
That's awesome.
I didn't realize 7-Eleven was a global brand because, at least in California, they can't sell hard liquor, right?
Maybe a handful of them, but generally not. But no, 7-Eleven is actually owned by a Japanese company now, and there are 7-Elevens all over. At Japan, I know for sure. Taiwan, Alicia verifies here, but yeah, in Asia, they're a vastly different store than they are here in America.
Oh, she said in Japan and Taiwan that she knows currently.
Yeah.
Also, whiskey highball in a can.
Love me some canned whiskey highballs for sure.
Dude, honestly, I am not mad at all about the RTD trend.
Right? As long as it's quality products in there, then yeah, bring it on.
Well, that's what matters the most. But like, I have all the ingredients at home. I have high quality whiskey. I have honey. I have lemons. I have sugar to make simple. But I still would rather drink, like a margarita in a can. Even though I have high quality tequila, high quality orange liqueur, be it Combier or Cointreau, and simple and lime. I don't carry agave nectar at home. Anyways, stay tuned for next week. We have Joseph Magnus on. We're going through some of the whiskey, and we're even going to do their gin. I'm really excited for that. So make sure to hit the like and subscribe button and ring the notification bell, because next week is juxtaposing Joseph Magnus. And guys, we've got a live stream every week until the second week of May, or through the second week of May. We're booking into May now, you guys. These brands really want to get in front of you and show you that they're more than just, another bottle on the shelf. So, that being said, a big, big thank you to our friend, Mr. Jonathan Kleinbart with Hotaling and Co., and to our friends at Kavalan. And of course, to you guys in the comments for tuning in and watching and interacting. We'll see you next week. John, don't go anywhere. Cheers, you guys. You gonna wait to laugh at me, John, or what? Are you leaving me looking like an idiot?
I gotta fill it up. There we go.
There we go.
Cheers, brother.
Cheers.